I'm optimistic about is we're going to see a change. We're going to see a reset. And I think we need that at the federal level.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are going to be talking about a rather complex topic. We're going to be talking about XRP and the United States debt market. Now, if you understand the United States debt market, you'll understand that it essentially underpins the entire financial system as we know it. And perhaps here lies the clues in relation to why I believe Ripple as a company is going to get adopted and ultimately become a key component in the maintenance of the United States as a global financial powerhouse. And actually, probably more importantly for us as XRP investors, XRP is going to essentially be that digital asset, that kind of enabler of the new financial system. So just today, actually, ladies and gentlemen, Citi published an article or a report. Citi Group, one of the largest kind of investment institutions within the world. And at the end of this article, or at the end of this paper, which is only about 7 pages long, their product manager says, the future of money will take more than one path. And while the precise trajectory remains uncertain, the journey to seamless, instant, intuitive payments will undoubtedly be driven by innovation, technology, and the collaborative efforts of a diversity of stakeholders across both the private and public sector. And the monetization of the United States debt bond market is going to involve and ticks all of these boxes in the sense that there's going to be a coalition of private and public, being the central banks and the treasury. There's going to be this coalition here because ultimately it's going to be the private sector that are going to be buying or using stablecoins that are ultimately going to be buying United States bond debt. And the sort of technology aspect is very much there. The instant, intuitive, and seamless payment system is also there in regards to what Ripple and thus XRP currently offer. So this is rather a complex topic, but really we're going to simplify it and put it as in layman's terms as humanly possible. Now, first of all, let's address the problem and the elephant in the room. The entire monetary system is backed essentially by IOUs in the form of bonds. Money is borrowed into existence. When money is created, it's in the form of a loan being made, whether that's the central bank to the commercial banks, whether that's the treasury to the Fed. It's a little bit more close-knit in regards to the UK. For example, our treasury will essentially sell bonds directly to the Bank of England. This is how kind of QE works and the whole system works. So money is always borrowed, predominantly at least anyway, into existence. And there's a liability, which is a debt, and the asset, which is backed up by the debt. The entire system is essentially backed up by the faith that this debt is valuable and going to be paid, even though we're now at a stage where there's $35 trillion of it, in my opinion, an unpayable amount. And this debt all needs servicing. And right now, the current Federal Reserve, or not Federal Reserve, federal government current expenditure on this interest payment is $1.1 trillion a year. That's just the federal government's through borrowing and the deficit's interest expenditure payment. And when the gross product of a company, the income of a company or a country is outweighed by its debt burden, it's game over. And the United States as a country is very much fastly approaching that. But the interesting thing in regards to what we're concerned with is the amount of debt that's out there that underpins not just the United States' economy, but the global economy, the continued proliferation of that, and to what end does this all lead to? And we need a hero in this story. And that hero, in my opinion, is very much in the form of stablecoins. We're going to be looking, and we've done this previously, we're going to be looking at a report that was released by the Treasury themselves talking about digital assets and the treasury market specifically, and how backing stablecoins up with treasuries does a number of things. It introduces demand at a time when there is none for the treasury market. And I want to talk about that demand. So with, let's say, the US 10-year government bond, what essentially this means is it's a bond that matures over 10 years, and there'll be an interest that will likely be variable on that. And that interest will go up when the value of the bond goes down. And for the past 40 years, the interest, the yield that has been paid on bonds has been going down over 40 years, because essentially there's been this kind of put under the market up until the events of March 2020, where we now have yields going up and recently spiking. This is why you're seeing that dollar strength, and ultimately the bond market, which underpins everything, going down. And this is largely because people are losing faith in the system, and they don't want an asset that is largely being proliferated in this manner. Since March 2020, we were at $23 trillion. Today, we're at 34. Over $12 trillion has been added, and it took us a great amount of time just to get to $1 trillion since 2020, in the past 4 years. So why would people want an asset? And remember, this asset is crucial because it underpins everything. Why would people want an asset? It underpins money itself, by the way. Why would people want an asset, and it's a dollar-based system, that is just getting proliferated in this manner? They wouldn't. And this is why you're seeing yields start to spike, certainly at the moment, with all the uncertainty, obviously, around the elections, most likely in the United States. I do think this will settle. But I ultimately think the Treasury now, more than ever, needs to come up with a buyer for, if they're continuing to issue this amount, who then buys that? If the public market right now isn't buying it, and that's why we're seeing yields spike to incentivize buying of the debt, historically it's been the Fed. And the Fed's only way to buy this debt is to print more money, to issue more of the very thing that they're buying. And this is how you end up in this death spiral. So there needs to be that coalition, which Citi were just talking about, between the private and public sector. And I think that is in the form of stablecoins. And we know that Ripple have been zealous in regards to, they didn't need to, maintaining a stance in the United States or a position in the United States. It's very ironic, isn't it, that they were one of the only countries or companies, or interesting, I should say, that the SEC officially went after, likely to stall and to throw retail off the scent. We're expecting some sort of a monumental move to the upside for it. And of course, recently, months ago, they announced their stablecoin. And increasingly, and this report is from the Treasury themselves, the people that are largely in charge of that debt, people are turning their views towards stablecoins as essentially staving off a debt crisis. So what's taking place right now is extremely interesting, because ultimately we've got, and we're looking at it here, the likes of the Treasury essentially highlighting the role of stablecoins in regards to providing a demand for an asset, that the demand for that asset is directly correlated with global financial stability. And thus, in my opinion, the promotion of a private party, Ripple, and a technology, XRP, that can ultimately enable and stave off a kind of lack of confidence due to a lack of demand, or at least increase the confidence through an increase of demand in the sort of debt markets, the treasury markets. Why would they not enable something like that? And we know that Ripple also, through actually them partnering with Ripple, or looking to enable Ripple at least, that's ultimately going to bring them more on the global stage as it relates to the financial world, given their sort of integrations with banks across the world. This is extremely interesting, and this is the piece as it relates to growth in the stablecoin market has resulted in modest increase in the demand for short-dated treasuries. The most prevalent stablecoin in the markets today are fiat-backed stablecoins. A very significant portion of that collateral is taken from the T-bills and Treasury-backed repo transactions, with an estimate that $120 billion in total stable collateral is directly invested in the Treasury. This is going to grow to trillions, ladies and gentlemen, and they know that. In fact, there's reports of them out there. And are they going to allow Tether, a non-US company, to dominate? No, they're going to put their man at the helm, being Ripple. And once this nonsense with the SEC is over, which I think is very much deliberate to throw retail off the scent, we're going to see an explosion or a realization of the true value of Ripple and XRP. Over the near term, we expect continued growth in stablecoin markets, along with the overall size of digital asset markets. Medium-term regulatory and policy choices will determine the fate of this private currency. Remember, there's going to be a coalition between private and the public sector. History shows that the private currency that does not meet NQA requirements leads to financial instability, and such is highly undesirable. Get ready, ladies and gentlemen. It's coming. Rapid growth and massive volatility might lead to future hedging needs and a flight to quality demand for treasuries. This is all about how stablecoins are essentially going to play a role in the current, or play a role in sort of innovating the current financial system, which is entirely a debt treasury-based system. And right now, the need for that private sort of intervention, it could never be so, it could never be so obvious. And ultimately, stablecoins are going to play that role. And the United States is going to back their own horse, being Ripple, in my opinion. It's the premier. Of course, you have Circle. I do think they're going to play a role again. But Ripple and this real USD, even the name is likely chosen for a reason, are ultimately going to be the people that are going to come in and tokenize trillions of dollars worth of treasury. They're going to help the United States government, and thus, through lowering that yield, because they're going to increase the demand at a time when nobody wants it, and we're seeing yield spike. Remember, we looked at that just a second ago. Ultimately, they're going to play a role in coming in and sort of liquefying the treasury market and providing that demand for it. I think the Fed's going to likely do that as well, but they won't need to do it to such a degree. But this doesn't stop the ultimate proliferation of things. It just kicks the can down the road. And ultimately, the rise of other forms of value and global currencies that can be transacted will still exist. This will just be one key component of multiple. And actually, there are areas where XRP can play a role more broadly. Certainly, we know that the likes of BRICS nations are using DLT as an instant sort of settlement layer. So that is it from me, guys. Hopefully, we've not confused everyone. The main takeaways are, right now, the very financial system is underpinned by the debt markets, the US debt markets predominantly, as it's the world reserve currency. We're seeing yields go up, which means we're seeing debt go down. That can't happen for long, because ultimately it underpins the entire world, and then you end up in a kind of 2008 financial situation because people end up insolvent. So there needs to be that demand. That demand can't necessarily, it will come from, to a degree, the Fed, but the Fed's only way to buy treasuries is to issue more debt, essentially, which inflates the debt at a time when people don't want the debt because it's already inflating. So there needs to be that private sector individual. That's coming in the form of stable coins, and thus the likes of Ripple with their real USD, in my opinion, as a United States company that ultimately is going to ensure the United States' global role as a financial and technological leader. That's it from me, guys. I'm going to love and leave you on that note. Thanks a lot for watching. I'll see you all in the next.